Spider-Man has been a menace for over half a century, and being everyone's favourite wall crawler, he's had several adaptations during that time. But we're not here to talk about the awful 60s show, or that weird Japanese version from the 70s. Seriously, look it up. No, we're here to discuss the live-action movie versions.
We've had 3 Spideys in just 16 years, but amazingly, no black, female or trans variants. Despite this outrage, we'll be focusing on what we do have. The meme one, the hipster one, and the, spoiler alert, dead one. As usual, we'll break the discussion down into rounds and focus on indisputable ironclad facts, plus a good share of personal opinion. Because how else would we do this? Question is, are you ready to delve into the Spider-Verse? We know a guy's ready.
Round 1. Spider powers.
All the Spideys have the same basic powers. Maguire can do this, Garfield can beat up a bunch of police officers, and Japanese Spidey can do this. With so many Spider-Men, the difficulty comes in distinguishing each iteration from the last. For Marvel, this has meant introducing Stark tech into the equation, which has rubbed some fans up the wrong way because, well, Spidey don't need that shit. Arguably, the tech was justified in Infinity War, but we'll get into the costume more later.
Physically, Maguire and Holland have been shown to be slightly stronger than Garfield, doing some seriously heavy lifting. There are other differences too. Maguire had the organic web, which was weird. Garfield did some POV agility shit, which was weird. And Holland got kicked in the face by Ant-Man, which was awesome. But all 3 are roughly even power-wise, so it's kinda like trying to distinguish between the Kardashians, whoever they are.
There is a debate to be had about the Spider-Sense and its presentation though, and this might just be down to your own preference on which looks cooler, the time delay, the basketball catching, or the hairy arms. Personally, there's no topping the 90s cartoon version for us doopies. Spider-Sense! Danger! Let's be honest though, the Spider-Sense is pretty inconsistent across all adaptations, so this round really hinges on which actor sells their power set best, and in this respect, Tobey Maguire takes the cake. Just look at those facial expressions. Aside from that, Maguire is easily the strongest, is suitably agile, and has taken several beatings over the course of 3 movies, so he's our winner.
Round 2. Characterization.
Peter Parker is a character who's hard to get wrong, unless you're Japanese. A high schooler, an orphan, a genius, well, supposedly. Peter's also one of the most selfless heroes out there, but he's a bit of a mess too, barely managing to keep his life together, late homework, broken promises, all while trying to mac on chicks. Let's use Tobey Maguire to start us off. As Sam Raimi once said,
like a good education, Maguire's Parker is clearly out of place in a public high school. The guy was 26 in his first film, and boy is it obvious. Probably why they fast-tracked him to graduation, but Maguire does a decent job of depicting Peter as a socially awkward nerd, at least in the first one. He clearly didn't care later on. It's difficult not to get distracted by how weird the characterization became in the 3rd movie. An abusive, dancing emo ain't dark, it's cringy. There was talk of a 4th film, but the damage was done. Spidey 3 was the end for Maguire and Raimi, and you kind of feel like they wanted it that way.
Garfield approaches the character slightly differently. This Peter mumbles and stumbles his way to social awkwardness, but he rides a skateboard, so he must be kinda cool, right? And just look at his glorious hair. Garfield's Parker is smart too. Well, Hollywood's version of smart. Because there's no way average intelligent folks could find their way to Daddy's secret underground lab. Is there? A lot of people like Garfield as Spidey, and he was certainly committed to the role, with rumours he might be thrown into the MCU. But let's be real, Andy's too good looking, is Spider-Man too obnoxious, and he was even older than Maguire.
Holland, meanwhile, was an actual teen when he took over the role in Civil War and still pulls off the teen vibe into his 20s. Without going into his origin and personal sob story, again, Holland embodies Peter's attributes convincingly. Marvel are taking the character's development slowly too. They want to keep Pete in high school as long as possible, and rightly so. He's still got plenty to learn. This Peter is innocent and honest. He's overwhelmed by the bells and whistles of the Stark suit, and he's still getting to grips with his power set. All in all, this is the closest we've got to what Peter Parker is in the comics. Not the whiny gimp, not the hipster, but a simple kid who goes out of his way to do the right thing, despite the toll it takes on his life. Come on. Someone who allows himself to be bullied by this chump has got to be a decent human being.
Round 3. Costume.
Spider-Man's costume is iconic. It's had several redesigns over the decades, but the basic formula is the same. Red and blue, webs, bug eyes. Simple, right? Well, maybe not. 2002's costume was almost a carbon copy of the comic book, except those silly 3D webs they plastered all over the thing. It's a bit of a nitpick, but boy do we hate them. Beyond the montage, there's not much detail on exactly how Peter made the suit at all. At least we got to see black-suited Spidey. So, yay?
The Amazing series obviously sought to distance itself from the Raimi look, which is perfectly understandable considering it came a whole 5 years after its predecessor. The reds and blues are still there, but the symbol is bigger and more stylized. Plus, the eyes are reflective. Like the previous series, the suit changed between films, and in Amazing 2, they really nailed the look. The symbol changed, as did the eyes, becoming much bigger and bug-like. Plus, the suit was entirely practical, unlike our next entry.
Let's not be unfair. Holland's costume is really good. Red and blue, webs, and eyes that can change shape? The problem is, well, this. As much as we love the eyes and suit, visually it's been very inconsistent over the course of 3 movies. Then there's the Stark issue, which, although neatly explains how this kid got such a quality costume, removes some of the onus off of Peter. Sure, the new Iron Spider costume is cool, and it's great to see a new direction after 7 movies of more or less the same thing, but photorealism was a bit of an issue in the movie. As if some scenes were done by the people behind this.
Round 4, overall quality.
For the Doopy Bros, it's hard not to look back on the Raimi series without a bit of nostalgia. We were high schoolers when they came out after all. Side note, it's not actually called high school in the UK. But the series is not without its problems. The decent first entry pretty much wrote the rulebook for CBM origin movies, and this gave way to a superior sequel which is still fondly regarded today. And then the third movie came along.
Now on to the Amazing series. And what an inappropriate adjective. Despite our earlier praise for certain aspects of the films, they're mostly garbage. The phrases cash grab, too soon, and no fucking clue spring to mind. Plus, Avi Arad was still involved. And that's all we have to say about that.
Homecoming, meanwhile, is a good movie. It eschews the origin story, which is probably for the best, because how many times can we see Peter bitten by a spider? It has a great villain, a satisfying twist, but unfortunately, Spider-Man is a bit of a moron. It's also clearly part of the Marvel machine, which elevates the quality over the Sony efforts, and offers some seriously stellar support.
We think Sam Raimi is easily the best director. Webb admittedly has the coolest name, and let me just look this up. John Watts did a reasonably good job of directing a movie where, presumably, Marvel had much of the creative control. You may think that both the Wars movies are far superior to all the Spider-Man movies, but Pete's not carrying either of them, so we can't really count them among solo efforts.
That said, tell me you weren't emotionally moved at the end of Infinity War. There's a lot to be said for a character who makes you care, and I'm not sure either of the other chumps did that, and they both had their fair share of tears. Holland is strangely at ease in the role. He's not obnoxious, and he's not going OTT with ridiculous facial expressions. He's just a simple high school kid from London, UK, who technically never went to high school. He does his best, and makes a ton of mistakes along the way, like constantly. But despite this, we've chosen Tom as our overall winner. Now, if he could just rematerialize sometime soon, we'd all be a lot happier. Thanks for watching, folks. Feel free to comment and add your vote to the poll to let us know which is your favourite Spidey. And while you're here, why not web swing your way to one of our other videos? Oh, and you could always help us out by liking and subscribing. Who am I kidding? Just go ahead and leave your abusive comment already.